Magic Johnson, who's also chairman and CEO of Magic Johnson Enterprises. Magic, thank you so much for being with us. James Baldwin said something, I wrote this down because I just think he's a writer I idealize. He said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I'm wondering what you think of what we're seeing tonight, what you have been seeing in Los Angeles and all around this country.
Well, you know, the protesters have a right to protest as long as it's peaceful. We don't want to see the looting. We don't want to see buildings and businesses burned down, because what people have to remember is that minorities probably work in some of those businesses as well. And then you don't really hear the message as loud and clear when you have looting and you have buildings burned. So we want to get back to peaceful protesting, because what we saw on that video was outright outrageous. George Floyd got murdered by that police officer. That's why the black community has really never trusted the police. It's because there's been a lot of George Floyds in our community that hasn't been reported or seen, and people who live in Black America know that. Only reason now that we're acting like this is because we're fed up, we're tired of it, we can't take it anymore, and thank God for cell phones that could video this murder. And what I did enjoy was Terrence Floyd, George's brother, was on CNN earlier today, and to hear him speak about he was tired of seeing, and he didn't want to see any more looting and buildings burned, but what he wanted to see was a good, quiet protest. And I think, I hope in my heart that all the protesters heard Terrence Floyd, and he talked about praying and asking God to protect us all.
Well, I think the point you make is so important that, you know, when, you know, some folks, you know, use this as an opportunity to, you know, to break into a store or something, it you know, cameras focus on that, and it does a disservice to the tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people who have been protesting for days now, and frankly for years and decades, about injustices in this country. And it allows people to not pay attention to the injustices and to suddenly focus on the obvious wrong of, oh, well, people shouldn't steal something. But there's a you know, there's a huge injustice and inequality which is staring us in the face, and we should not be giving it any opportunity to take our gaze off that because of this other stuff.
Yeah, Anderson, racism been going on for hundreds of years. I mean, my grandfather told me about it. My father told me about it. He went through it. Now here I am 60, I'm going through it. And then my two sons now, EJ and Andre, they're going through it. And so what we see, though, is these young people of all races, not just black people are out there, all race of people are out there, and they're showing their power, and they're letting their voice be heard. Now they have to do the same thing in November when the election comes around. And so I love how they mobilized. I love that today we're seeing more peaceful protesting, and it's been powerful. Even here in Los Angeles, we've seen that. But also, too, at the same time, I don't think that this is going to go away anytime soon until we see that George Floyd's murder, that police officer is found guilty of that murder. And then we'll deal with the other three after that.
Yeah, I want to ask you a personal question, and if it's too personal, that don't answer it. But just as the father of two black young people, you know, every person of color I know has had that conversation with their child of what you do if you're pulled over. And it's not a conversation I can tell you anyone ever had with me, and you know, I know the reason why, because my interactions with the police are completely different than most people's interactions with the police, frankly, but certainly most of my friends' interactions with the police. So, what is it like to have that conversation? And then probably a lot of people look at you and think, well, you're Magic Johnson. You don't have to, your kids are fine. They don't probably have to worry about that kind of stuff. When in fact, this is
Well,
about people judging others based on the color of their skin and nothing else.
well, it doesn't matter if I'm Magic Johnson or not. My kid, just like I am, still a black man, right? And yes, I had that conversation because it's important that I have that conversation with both EJ and Andre. If you pulled over, make sure you got your hands out of the window. Make sure that you comply. Well, let's look at George Floyd. He did everything he was supposed to do, and this police officer put all his body weight on his neck, right, for 8 minutes. So if that can happen to George Floyd, it can happen to EJ and Andre and more black men. And so we're fed up with this. It's got to stop. And then last but not least, Anderson, these young people got to have a voice at the table. They want their voices heard. They want their concerns heard. And then they want action to take place. And so they're going to still protest for a long time until their voices are heard.
One of the things Governor Cuomo said the other day, which I thought was just kind of so sensible and obvious, and yet, I think people just kind of accept it, is Governor Cuomo was saying, why should a young black child in America who lives in a neighborhood that doesn't have, the resources of a more economically advantaged neighborhood, why does that child get an inferior education? Why is that accepted? Why do we think, oh yeah, that's just the way it is? I mean, in this country, of all countries, these basic injustices, these basic inequalities, maybe because we've lived with them our entire lives, we think, oh, yeah, that's just the way it is, but it's not. I mean, it should not be that way. It just seems so obvious. One of your former teammates, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, wrote an amazing op-ed in the Los Angeles Times. I think it was really written for people in the white community, but I think it was really just so well done. One of the things he said is racism in America is like dust in the air. It seems invisible, even if you're choking on it, until you let the sun in. Then you see it's everywhere. As long as we keep shining that light, we have a chance at cleaning it wherever it lands, but we have to stay vigilant because it's always still in the air. I just thought that was so powerful.
Oh, no question about it. Kareem is a very intelligent black man and probably the smartest athlete I've ever known in my life. Let me go back to Governor Cuomo. We need a leader like him. He has been strong. He's had an incredible strategy for the state of New York. He was on top of it. Governor Whitmer of Michigan has been strong. I know she was on your show. Thank you for protecting my state, Michigan, where I'm from, Governor. You've done an amazing job. Governor Newsom out here in California has done an amazing job. We've had strong leadership, right? We've seen it. We've seen those people who say, hey, we got to unite the people.